And I do have to say, as much as I have been traveling my journey consciously for many years, and you know, for all of you out there who do that and have been doing that, you sometimes get to a place where you think, well, I'm pretty good. I've done some good healing work. Wow, lady, let me tell you, this has peeled more off and has opened more, has brought more awareness to me about things that I had thought I'd already journeyed through, I'd already healed. And it is shaking.
What's so beautiful about healing, and this is what I will say to that, you had done the work and you had healed, but healing is like I know it's so cliche, so I don't want to say it in a cliche way. The same story, this is how I say it. Let's say you're telling yourself a story. Let me just erase this, just so I can use this as a story, okay? Because I love storytelling. That's what a teacher is. A great teacher is always telling stories. So this is what I realize about stories, and this is why healing goes on forever around the same story. So let's say you had a story that was devastating for you. Let's just say there was a story, something you went through at some point in your life, and it was really devastating, whether it was a 5 minutes of your life, whether it went on for 15 years, but there is a story that if you were to think back, it was really hurtful. It really hurt you. So what happens is that there's just so much shame and sorrow and sadness around that story. So we start healing. When we first start telling the story down here, it's so shameful that we have to heal it. And the only way to heal it is we got to get it out. So we got to talk about it and we got to share it. And then sharing it alone isn't enough, but it's a great start. Sharing it alone starts to shift it, because the first time you tell anyone that's had a really traumatic story, the first time you share it, you might not even be able to get your words out without sobbing, without crying, without shaking, then you do realize in time that you think you're healed because you can tell that same story and there isn't a huge emotional reaction anymore. So in your mind, you're like, oh wow, I've healed that story. I don't shake and cry when I tell it. In fact, I can tell it now but really the truth is when you get to the point that you can tell that story without shaking and crying, and there's no big emotional charge, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the highest version of the story. It means that you worked through the grieving, you're higher. You've worked through the fear of telling it. Now you're up to you're having the courage, you're really letting it go and you're sharing it. And now you're up to you're neutral. So a lot of us say, I'm healed. It's neutral. I'm neutralized. It's a neutralized story. It's not creating any energy. But deeper healing begins to happen when you actually start to tell that, and you're continuing up the spectrum, and to be able to actually tell that story from a perspective of forgiveness, which is so layered, even in itself. The first time you say I forgive them. You don't, you do, you're working on it. You're doing I'm really working on trying to forgive you. So I have to say I forgive you 100 times, just like I first had to tell the story without shaking, so that then forgiveness becomes neutral. Then there's not even a huge charge around forgiving the person anymore. Then that's neutralized. Then could you imagine saying to yourself, how would I learn to love what I've been through? How do I actually reach a point where I love this person in spite of what they did? And if they were a stranger, I love that this is still part of humanity. This is a human being. And that's why when we say, I thought I healed the story, because the truth is we're going so deep in the enlightenment process that I don't know anyone that's at the point of telling a story that of brutalized trauma through the lenses of pure enlightenment. Mm-hmm. But that's why, Nicole, when you say, I thought I was there, and then wow, because we keep having these opportunities to actually not just neutralize a story, but to heal the legacy.
Yes. And as you get to each stage and you're neutral in that space, it allows you the freedom to sit back and look deeper into it, and then take a step up. And that's what I've been recognizing going through this is
Yeah.
my behavior mechanisms that have been my protection over the years that you think are working for you, and you think are just part of who you are, you suddenly step back, and it's made me step back and say, oh, wait a minute. I know I'm doing that.